everybody, welcome to PsyTech's second annual pitch event. I am 𝗍𝗫𝗍, event director, and I hope you're having an incredible day full of information and conversation. We're going to be hearing some very exciting companies today, innovative and new to the psychedelic space. But first, let me just tell you the format of the day. Each pitch contestant will pitch. It will last for 7 minutes. At 1 minute, I will pop in and just give you a 1 minute notice. And at 7 minutes, I will unfortunately have to interrupt your presentation and cut you off. And then after your pitch, we will hear some questions from the judges. And that leads me to our judges. Our judges today are our very own Hayim Raclaw, CEO of PsyTech, Cody Shandraw, Director of Ambria Capital, Tom Zuber, Managing Partner at Zuber Lawler, and our own Mark Goldhar, CFO of PsyTech. The prize today is actually close to $30,000 in value, and I would like to thank BDO for their prize of $5,000 in accounting services, Zuber Lawler for $10,000 in legal services, and PsyTech will be offering $10,000 in investment. So this is a well worth it pitch, everybody. I think we're ready to go, so we'll just get straight into it. I would like to introduce our first pitch. This will be led by Pamela Hadfield, Founder and Chief Marketing Officer of 𝗙ihe_𝗧𝗲𝗏, and Jeremy Wheat, CEO of 𝗙ihe_�𝗏𝗏. Thank you, guys. Good luck.
So hi, I'm Pamela Hadfield. I'm one of the founders of 𝗙ihe_�𝗏𝗏. And formerly, I founded one of the first telehealth platforms in the cannabis space. And we saw hundreds of thousands of patients. And what I began to see across these patients and all the data points is that women suffer disproportionately from migraines, depression, chronic pain, etc. And we also have conditions that affect only half of the population, like PMS and menopause. But actually, there's a bigger problem too. We've been left out of clinical trials and research, and the research is not separated by gender. And most of the drugs have been developed for male biology. So interestingly, a few years ago, women through my cannabis company, HelloMD, started asking me about psychedelics and if psychedelics could help them because cannabis wasn't going the extra mile because, as we all know, it's not the panacea. And so I started to wonder if there was a cross-section of femtech, women's healthcare, and psychedelics to help address overlooked female health conditions like PMS and menopause. So this was the genesis of 𝗙ihe_𝗧𝗏𝗏. And so after telling you that little story, I'm going to hand this over to our CEO, Jeremy Wheat, for the next few slides. Thank you.
Thanks, Pamela. So many women suffer from hormone-related mood disorders, including PMS, and its acute form, premenstrual dysphoric disorder, all the way through to menopause, as Pamela has said. So these mood disorders include depression, anxiety, irritability, and in the case of menopause, also sexual dysfunction. In some countries, such as the US, SSRIs are the current standard of care. They only have a 40 to 60% success rate in addressing depression, and there are also often side effects such as weight gain and loss of libido. 5 million women in the US alone are prescribed antidepressants for menopause, which represents an addressable market of $10 billion. Our solution is to develop a low-dose, take-at-home, psychedelic-derived medicine designed for women and prescribed through conventional delivery channels. This will be a safe and convenient solution for millions of women worldwide and approved for health insurance in the US. So the psychedelic sector so far has been largely focused on molecules in search of a cure. At 𝗙ihe_𝗧𝗏𝗏, we take a patient-centric approach to drug development. We start from a deep understanding of the therapeutic indication before going on to research and develop the appropriate psychedelic-derived medicine. It turns out that women's endocrinal differences to men are likely to impact the way in which psychedelics work. We are engaged in a deep study of estrogen and its effects on the central nervous system. In contrast to the current emphasis on psilocybin, MDMA, LSD, or DMT and their derivatives, we're focusing on developing 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is ideally suited for women and compares favorably with MDMA as an entactogenic and empathogenic molecule. Alongside preclinical research on 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 for women's mood disorders, we'll also be filing patent applications as part of our market exclusivity strategy. Now, we're spending the next 6 months on 3 prongs of activity. Firstly, pharmacological research and planning in vitro and in vivo studies. Secondly, we're developing our market exclusivity strategy, which includes drafting a provisional patent, which will be data and evidence-based and not speculative or aspirational as elsewhere. We believe there is a false economy to rushing into patent filing. Lastly, we're finalizing our regulatory strategy. This will shortly lead us to engaging the FDA in pre-IND meetings and ensuring all their issues and concerns are addressed in the science. We'll be taking advantage of computational biology and biostatistics to de-risk our research and looking ahead to clinical trials in humans starting in 2023. Now back to Pamela.
Thanks, Jeremy. So our founding team is full of seasoned psychedelics, healthcare, and pharma leaders. So you just heard from Jeremy, who's the former CEO of Universal Ibogaine. We also have on our team our Chief Scientific Officer, 𝗙𝗏cie, who was recently the Scientific Director of 𝗙𝗚cie, and we're so excited to have her. She previously worked on the science of taste for Coca-Cola and has a string of patent inventions to her name and is a brilliant mind to add to our team. And then we have 𝗙𝗚cie, who's a veteran of the cannabis and psychedelic industry, but also has deep pharma experience. So why now? After an initial gold rush period of what we like to call funny money, there's now a strong demand to de-risk investments and it's based on a careful consideration of the team and science as well as IP potential. And we really get this. We are an experienced and highly focused team, and we've built and exited companies numerous times. We're also not a functional mushroom, psilocybin, DMT, also ran. We're moving into a new space, and it's wide open territory. Our target molecule, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, it compares favorably to MDMA, and it actually has a better safety profile. We know from the research that we've done that it's also especially well suited for women. So while there's a growing body of recent research on 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, there's also a favorable IP landscape for our target molecule, and we know that's important. So the last thing, we're not interested in the getting rich quick through a pump and dump scheme. We've been there, done that in terms of being approached by investors. We're coming from a different perspective. And most importantly, it's vital that we start to take women's health seriously, and we start immediately. We're building a platform company that does just that, taking advantage of the power of psychedelics. We're here to transform women's healthcare. We're here to actually create a movement.
So we're doing, as Pamela said, so much more than drug development in the psychedelic sector. We're starting a movement in biotech and wider society that takes women's health seriously. We're proud to sit alongside non-pharmaceutical startups in the growing femtech space. We only want to speak with investors who are interested in a long-term value-added relationship. In return, we promise to safeguard your investment, enabling an efficient use of funds for science research and a carefully crafted strategy that combines in-house expertise with the very best external advisory firms. Every day we get inquiries through our website of people affirming what we're doing and offering to work for us or help in other ways. We'd love to hear from you too, if you want to join us in empowering women with psychedelic-derived healthcare solutions. Thank you.
Great, thank you guys. With even 15 seconds left to spare, I'll pass this right now to our judges to ask you a couple of questions.
How much capital has the company raised so far?
We're well into the six digits, and we have two funds who are closing this week.
How far along is your IP development?
Well, we've done the patent landscape search. We understand we have a good knowledge of the published and issued patents. It's pretty clear, and we have an IP lawyer who's working with us to file a provisional patent when all the science is in. We're about 5 to 6 months away from filing a provisional patent, which will have all the key aspects, pharmacokinetics, first in animal safety studies and whatnot.
Thank you.
And what are your timelines to revenue?
Oh, well, it's quite a few years away. If we're saying that we start phase 1 in 2023, I would say it's going to be at least 3 years or 4 years before we get to the end of phase 3 and regulatory approval.
Have you started identifying specific indications, or is it still fairly general?
No. So basically, you have a pipeline along the life cycle, starting with PMDD, which is the acute form of PMS, all the way through to perimenopause and beyond. And that's basically our pipeline. So it starts with PMDD, which is our first indication, and then segues lower down in the pipeline to menopause.
What's your capital needs over the next 24 months?
Well, we're raising 1.5 million US at seed, and then we'll need another $7 million US to fund the late stage preclinical. So seed is funding the early stage preclinical, and then Series A will be funding the late stage preclinical all the way through to IND enabling studies.
How many team members do you currently have?
The core team, the internal team, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us. But then the issue is that we're relying on our expert relationships with CROs. So we don't believe in the necessity of building out in-house when you can just plug and unplug the science expertise as you need it.
Can you tell us, without revealing any confidential information, of course, please do not read this as do not reveal confidential information. What is your IP? In other words, this is a company that's focused on women. I imagine that some of your IP focuses on the disparities between men and women, and so I'd like to confirm that. And also, if you can reveal details without going so far as to reveal confidential information, that would be helpful.
Well, our IP will be all the research that we're doing initially in the early stage preclinical. This will be research that's not been done anywhere else. The advantage of 𝗏𝐶B is, on the one hand, there is a body of initial research, but the opportunity is that research is very incomplete in comparison to classical psychedelics. So we're confident that we can prove originalness and invention basically by doing this research. And then going on to the actual patent strategy, it will be a combination of formulation patent, method of use, delivery, and also potentially combination. That's on the patent side. And then there will, of course, be the regulatory exclusivity that we'll be going for as well through the clinical trial process.
Okay. I think that's the time for questions. Thank you very much, Jeremy and Pamela. Deb.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Alrighty. We'll get our judges back in a minute. They're slowly disappearing from here. There we go. Okay. That was fantastic. Now we're going to move on to our second pitch. I'd like to introduce Benjamin Mudge, PhD, candidate psychiatry, and director of Bipolar Disorder CIC. Thank you, Benjamin. You're on mute. So,
Deborah, thank you so much for inviting me to speak. It's a great opportunity. Yes, I am doing a PhD in the psychiatry department at Flinders University. I'm also the director of Bipolar Disorder CIC, which is a not-for-profit community interest company. And I'm going to share some slides here. So can you see those? Bipolar disorder is a very complicated mental illness. It's difficult to treat because the condition itself is modulating. So between mood swings between depression and mania. So any one medication is very difficult to find to actually stabilize this condition. And the currently available medications offered by psychiatry simply are not working. And as well as that, they have terrible side effects. The global expenditure on medications which are attempting to treat bipolar disorder is in excess of $5 billion US per year. So there are antipsychotics, antidepressants, anticonvulsants, anxiolytics, and lithium all marketed, but none of these actually heal the condition. And currently there's no new drugs under development from big pharma. So bipolar people are in a mess and continuing to commit suicide at a very high rate. And this was also having implications for society as a whole, with suicides, hospitalizations, and things like bankruptcies having a devastating effect on society. So, for example, in the US, there's over $200 billion per year as a burden as a result of bipolar disorder. Now, it would be great if there was a psychedelic which could treat this condition, but there is a dogma out there at the moment within psychedelic research that bipolar disorder and psychedelics are contraindicated. And so at the moment, all the trials are excluding bipolar people from even developing a solution. So I've gone ahead and I've developed my own solution. I'm engineering my own workaround to the difficult problems. So this starts with my own story. So I'm a bipolar person. I spent many years in the psychiatric mainstream, and then I've since then healed my condition with my own special brew of ayahuasca. And I've trained with indigenous as well as Santo Daime and learned a lot about cooking techniques. Now, I'm doing a PhD in psychiatry, which has got anecdotes from about 80 bipolar people's experiences of drinking ayahuasca. And you can read these anecdotes in the PDF if you like. I can send that to you with these quotes. Now, there are some problems. Sometimes bipolar people do go manic when they drink ayahuasca. And the reason why there's a different response is because ayahuasca has 4 different psychoactive ingredients, 3 from the vine and 1 from the leaf. Now, it turns out that DMT is the safest of all the classical psychedelics in terms of raising mood, in terms of triggering manic episodes. And as well as that, there are many different kinds of ayahuasca vine used to make the tea. And what I've been doing is analyzing the different ingredients in each of these. So they all have different ratios of the amount of the 4 ingredients. Now, when those ratios are varying, they have a different variable effect on the noradrenaline, dopamine, and serotonin neurotransmission systems of the brain. And what that does is it either balances or destabilizes the bipolar brain. So alongside the psychedelic experience, you've got either sometimes they're too stimulating or too sedating. And what I'm doing is developing a way to figure out the ideal balance so that bipolar people can benefit from the psychedelic without getting triggered into mania. So this is involving a lot of study of cooking technique, and I've developed an ideal recipe for making ayahuasca that works for bipolar people. Now, a follow-on from this is that I'm taking these recipes and all these different samples of ayahuasca. So I've got 100 unique samples of ayahuasca, each of which has been drunk by a bipolar person. And then I have qualitative data as to the outcomes of that. And I'm running each of these samples through 𝗙𝗃LC chromatographic analysis at a laboratory. And that work has just been completed, and I'm about to get the results. And so I'll be able to determine from that the quantities of harmine, tetrahydroharmine, harmaline, and DMT. So these 4 psychoactive ingredients, I'll figure out the percentages in each of the teas, and I can determine from that what is the ideal ratio of these 4 psychoactive ingredients in order for it to have a safe and effective therapeutic benefit for bipolar people. Now, an outcome of that is the development of a novel medication for treating bipolar disorder, which is a synthetic pill containing the 4 psychoactive ingredients in ayahuasca with precisely the correct ratios to balance bipolar brain chemistry that I have determined from my many years of research and my chromatographic analysis. So bipolar people could be prescribed this medication in 2 delivery systems. The first would be a high dose, psychedelic dose of administered to patients in a hospital setting that involved psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy sessions, which would be much like the MAPS MDMA 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 protocol. But as well as that, this could be given at a much smaller dose, a microdosing milligrams of a microdose that would be could be used as a daily maintenance medication. So bipolar people are told by their psychiatrist, you need to take medication for the rest of your life. And my response to that is, well, could that medication be an ayahuasca-based medication? And that is one of the outcomes that's very clear from my research of interviews, is as well as my own experience, is that this occasional high dose in a therapeutic setting interspersed by daily maintenance medication, or this could be even weekly or twice weekly maintenance medication, is the ideal way to heal bipolar disorder.
That's 7 minutes, Benjamin.
That's it?
I'm so sorry.
That's it. That was it. That was exactly on time. Yeah, great.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
It was. Fantastic.
I was brought up not to interrupt, so that's really hard, even though we...
Thank you. Great.
Thank you very much, Benjamin, for that really interesting pitch. I will now leave you in the judge's hands for some questions. Thank you.
Great.
Hello, Benjamin.
Hello. Thanks so much for the opportunity to get some feedback.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and it's the purpose of events like these. Oh, don't go away.
Right. Volume up so I can hear you properly. Right.
Okay. I'll kick off the questions about clinical efficacy for the microdosing is fascinating. As is this would be a full replacement for lithium?
Yes, it can be. I'm the prototype case myself. So I have been off pharmaceutical drugs for 15 years, and I've managed my condition only using ayahuasca. And more to the point, my special brew of ayahuasca. So I'm the prototype, but I know of plenty of other bipolar people who are doing the same. And what's interesting
in the microdosing quantities.
Okay, so they're doing both. They're doing both the big dose, the full dose, which has a psychedelic effect and needs to be monitored in a safe environment, either by a shaman or it could be in a hospital setting. But then the real benefit, when in those big doses, there are big shifts that happen. But if there's a long gap of time in between the ceremonies, then it's better to microdose. That could be once a week. It could be a teeny amount once per day. There is a history going back that's documented in the Santo Daime religion of microdosing like a teaspoon of ayahuasca. And that the best thing to do is to do it at night.
Benjamin, just a quick question. What is the overall business plan? I know we have to bring business into this too, but
yes.
How does this work in terms of your business idea?
All right, so I've got my data. I'm submitting my PhD. I'll have 1 year after the PhD is submitted to submit a patent. So I want to submit the patent for this synthetic pill in 2023. And at that point, I would need to team with one of the pharmaceutical psychedelic innovators. And I've been in conversation with 𝗎𝗏. I've been in conversation with several other companies, basically. I don't want to go into too much detail, but this would be my IP that I would then partner, either sell to a company like 𝗎𝗏 or to work in partnership. And then they would go through the clinical trials and so on.
Okay, thank you.
Can you put it on a timeline for us? From where you are now, studies, some timeline from now to...
Submitting my PhD in 2022, and then within 1 year of that date, before the information goes public and someone can steal my IP, I submit the patents in 2023, and then could go straight into clinical trials in realistically to set it up and get ethics 2024. I've already got someone from Berkeley University who's very interested in running the clinical trials, and then realistically it would be 5 years before, 3 to 5 years before it goes to market. After that. Yeah.
Benjamin, you had mentioned
2026 to 2028, something like that.
You had mentioned in your presentation, Benjamin, thank you for the wonderful presentation, that you're experimenting with different ratios of components here. And how are you monitoring that? So what's the process for that? Or are you testing it on yourself? I got the impression this was present tense, you're doing things now. So I just wanted to learn the details of that. And what have you learned so far without revealing any confidential information, of course?
A very good question. So I started it off with what you could call autoethnography, i.e. experimenting on myself as my own guinea pig. And it's the only way you can get ethics committee approval is to do something to yourself, actually. So that's what I was doing, and I made a lot of progress. But then I've been going around and attending ayahuasca ceremonies where there are other bipolar people drinking as well. And there's one case, one of these batches that I've done the chromatography on has had 5 bipolar people drinking the same batch of tea and all getting this very beneficial result. So that is like my gold standard and that I'm referring to. And then basically when I've got 100 different chromatography results, I can do the graphs that correlate the spikes in the percentages with the either beneficial or problematic effects of that particular sample of tea. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's how I'm drawing. Basically I can correlate the qualitative data with the quantitative data and make a prediction about the ideal benefit, the ideal ratio. And then after that, I can of course test it on myself. And I have over 100 bipolar people who are sitting and waiting. In fact, they're begging to do clinical trials.
Are you
that I've developed? Yeah.
Are you aware of any other psychedelic molecules that are being tested for bipolar as well?
Good question. So basically, I'm quite frankly the first, but when I started first. But since then, there has been a trial of ketamine where they included a few bipolar people in the trial. It was mainly for treating depression, but they included bipolar people. So ketamine can work to lift a bipolar person out of a depressed phase, but if you give it to them when they're feeling okay, or if they're already feeling slightly manic, then they become super manic, and it's actually dangerous for them, right? So the other trial that's planned to happen in the next couple of years is at UCSF in the BAD lab, where they're trialing a low dose of psilocybin to treat depression, and that is based on their anecdotal information. But again, all they're doing is giving it to bipolar people in a low dose when they're in a depressed phase. So this is like solving half the problem, but I'm trying to solve the whole problem, which is to actually heal the mood swings themselves and stabilize the condition, which is what has happened to me and which has happened with so many of, like dozens of the bipolar people that I've interviewed.
Ben, if somebody's taking, let's just say like a 𝗵𝘀𝗶𝗶, for example, would you stop their dosage as soon as their treatment started, or is this something that they would continue to take as they're going through your protocol?
Are you talking about other pharmaceutical drugs?
Yeah, if they're taking something currently, would you have them stop before they started treatment, or is it something that they would wean off as treatment was occurring?
This is a good point. So there is a hypothetical chemical interaction between the MAOIs in the ayahuasca and things like Prozac, for example, right? So it is generally considered dangerous to take them at the same time. And so what I would do would get them to wean off approximately 2 to 3 weeks before, because Prozac, for example, each of them has a slightly different half-life in the bloodstream, but they, you time it like say 2 weeks before, and then they're still feeling okay. And then when they come down, that's when you give them the ayahuasca.
Okay, thank you very much, Benjamin, and to our judges for those questions. We'll now move on to our next pitch. I'd like to introduce everybody to Dr. Michael Kagan, CEO of Reagenics. Thank you, Michael.
Hello, everybody. Good evening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Reagenics started off as an Israeli cannabis to cannabinoid company focusing on cell tissue culturing. That means not growing plants, but using plant stem cells to extract out of them their secondary metabolites, namely the cannabinoids. And we've now pivoted to using the same technology, the same scale-up know-how to apply it to psychedelics. So as we probably all know, there are many, many plants out there in the world and mushrooms that have hallucinogenic molecules in them. Many of them are in danger of extinction. Many of them are very difficult to grow. And our platform will be able to take samples of plants, turn them into the stem cell of the plant. So we're not growing any plants. In vitro stem cells, turn the stem cells into suspended cultures, and then using our proprietary bioreactors to form a production, scaled up production of any of molecules from these plants that are of interest. We've already tested psilocybin, LSA, and kratom, and we know our system works. In the picture that you can see, these are not our bioreactors, but there are, if you want, parent bioreactors that are used in Psychedelics. This is the only company in the world that has succeeded in large-scale production of plant cell tissue stem cells. They harvest this for a particular protein. In our case, we'll be harvesting it for molecules that we're interested in the field of psychedelics. The whole process is GMP, and we're able to produce pharma-grade APIs. What are the advantages of cell tissue cultures? Well, what we learned from cannabis is that growing a cannabis plant creates great variation in the concentration of cannabinoids in the flowers, dependent upon season, upon shading, upon pests, upon mold, upon all kinds of things like that. Our system, our platform gets rid of all these inconsistencies. We're still able to achieve a full entourage of multiple active molecules that come out of the stem cells. There's all year round, 24/7 harvesting, consistent concentrations. Everything's in closed tanks, no exposure to disease, very minimal footprints, etc., etc. This is the future of all plant tissue culturing for active ingredients. We call it plant molecular harvesting, and we're applying this know-how to the world of psychedelics. I'm not going to go through this whole process, but we start with either seeds or cuttings from plants. We create callus. We create from the callus viable stem cells. We work it up in cell suspensions, and then we move into full production. We have a facility in Holland that we've identified that we're going to be renovating, and that will have capacity for 1,500 reactors, each reactor at 1,000 liters, able to produce, I just have to remember, 1 kilogram a day of biomass. And then the question is, what is the concentration of the molecules within the biomass? We're looking to raise $12 million that will complete and test our proprietary bioreactors. The bioreactors are patentable. They do not violate or infringe upon the Psychedelics. They're also novel. They are more efficient than what is being used at the moment. The creator of the Psychedelics bioreactors, 𝗍𝗀cie 𝗄𝗏𝗋, is part of our company now. and he is in charge of the bioreactor design. My team is responsible for the cell tissue culturing and the cell suspensions and working them up in the bioreactors. We also have a project with Hadassah Hospital in Israel, where we are testing subcritical dosages of psychedelics. At the moment, it's 𝗙𝗪𝗏, but we're moving into ketamine. Subcritical meaning it's below psychoactivity, and looking at their anti-inflammatory effects. That all that material will be part of our patent bundling, and we're looking to become vertically integrated and the #1 provider of active psychedelic molecules. Thank you very much.
Okay, you finished a minute early. Well done, Michael. Thank you very much, Dr. Kagan, for sharing your presentation. I'll now hand this over to the judges for some questions.
Michael, just a quick question. You said you're raising 12 million. What round of financing? How many rounds of financing have you done already?
We had early small stage, then we had a round of 3 million, and now we're looking to grow that out.
Okay.
May I ask, what's your forecast from a regulatory point of view? And I've just shared a panel with Cygen out of Canada. What's your forecast from a regulatory point of view regarding the use of non-synthetic derived molecules for medicinal purposes?
Well, we can, like in cannabinoids, we can create isolates, so there'll be natural botanical isolates that we can do through just extraction, purification. My preference is always to try and keep botanical drugs as a multiplicity of molecules that would, and that's been shown in not only cannabinoids, but in psychedelics, especially in 𝗙𝗪𝗏. It's not a single molecule that is giving the full effect. And we're talking now about the anti-inflammatory aspects of these molecules. So we would be going for botanical drugs. They're identical to natural drugs. We're not doing any GMO. There's no tampering with the genome or anything like that. They're not synthetics. It's very important to emphasize that. This is not synthetics. This is not GMO. We're not using surrogate carriers. This is the actual plant cells that are producing what they always produce, just in another manner.
Have you been able to commercialize anything on the cannabinoid side?
No.
Okay.
But we, as I said, we pivoted. We have everything in place. Less interesting.
Why is that less interesting, Michael?
I think that the cannabinoid space is too crowded and has peaked. And our investors are more interested in the psychedelics for all the reasons they talked about in your previous sessions.
Very good.
What's the use of proceeds on the 12 million? Obviously, you have that facility. How much of that 12 million is going towards that? What's the current monthly burn? Can you walk us through the financials a little bit?
Cool. So there's needing to build out that facility. There's the need to build out, replicate the bioreactors. The bioreactors are modular. They'll be built out over time. We'll have a staff of about 10 to 12 people there. We have ongoing preclinical trials that are taking place in Israel. There's the purification, if we need to go through purification, formulation, if we need to go for formulation, and marketing. The business model is to be a B2B supplier of pharmaceutical grade APIs.
What's the current monthly burn?
The current monthly burn is very, very low because we haven't got that facility up and running. So in our facility in Israel, the monthly burn rate is about 80,000.
What's your path to revenues, Michael?
As I said, the path to revenues is to become a major supplier of GMP APIs.
Pardon me. Let me rephrase that. What's the timeline? In other words, do you have
timeline is something else? Okay, the timeline, the facility in Holland, and we've chosen Holland, as you would all know, because regulatory barriers are much lower there.
Mm-hmm.
To do this work, to do it anywhere else is going to be very, very difficult. We will have within 9 months the first full-scale bioreactor modules producing biomass. So within 9 months, we'll be able to have
psilocybin?
Of psilocybin, yes. And that will be able to prove our platform, prove our capability for scale up. The point I want to emphasize here is scale up. Everybody can do their little things in laboratories. When it comes to scale up in this way, controlled pharmaceutical grade APIs, we want to be number one. So between 9 to 12 months, we will be going online.
Do you have any offtake agreements in place right now?
Not
from
yet.
any of? Not yet. Okay.
Not yet. Far too early to do that.
Your import-export licensing, who's that going to be handled by?
Well, import-export license from where to where? If we're in the Netherlands, then we have access to Europe.
So let's say you're sending some to the United States or Canada, for example.
Good question. Don't have the answer. Haven't got that far yet.
See, and the testing. So the first psilocybin production is proximal, coming soon, and then the proof of concept will be in the molecular testing of that biomass.
Yes, but that's not the proof of concept. The proof of concept is, are we able to scale up? Are we able to produce GMP pharmaceutical grade and be able to produce enough biomass to feed all the research groups and everybody else that we've been talking to, not only in psilocybin, but all the various other plants that are becoming of great interest. And there are models. I mean, there are parallels in the world of algae, where I came from, for EPA. There are parallels in the cannabis world. So it's whoever controls the means of production is king. That's our message.
And on that note, thank you very much, Dr. Kagan.
Thank you.
Okay, our last pitch for today is 𝗙𝗲𝗪 I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yep. CEO of PsychLove. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as Deborah said, my name is 𝗙𝗲, and my project is called PsychLove. So basically, I'm a computer science student, graduate student in Denmark, and I'm the developer of PsychLove. And my friend Kasper, he runs the social media and creates the content. So a lot of people in this day and age, they actually learn about psychedelics on the internet, and this entails a couple of problems. I mean, the main problem is that psychedelics are a little bit niche subject. Thus, many people don't know anybody else with the same kind of interest, and also it's a little bit taboo in most circles, and therefore you don't go around advertising your interest in psychedelics in most circles. But there's still a need for belonging to a group for most people who learn about this on the internet. So this is where our solution comes into play. So basically, the solution is a web service and a mobile-friendly service, and it entails three main parts. So the first part to it is people should be able to find and create nearby groups, also for integration circles and other things. People should be able to find and create events and conferences in their local area. And thirdly, people should be able to, of course, find friends and dates in their local area. So how do I know people actually want this? So I began creating the, I got the idea spontaneously in 2018, and I decided to go to develop it in a day, in an afternoon actually. I quickly realized that it would take a much longer time to develop such an idea, and I threw it aside, and I thought it was probably a stupid idea anyway. The following weeks and months, I saw a lot of posts on the internet asking for such an idea, exactly that idea. And you see some of the posts here. They're from Facebook and Facebook and Reddit and so on. And they gather a lot of attention on the forums and so on. So naturally, I decided, okay, I should do something with this thing. So then I created the first prototype, and it was quite buggy and bad. And I released it, posted about it on Reddit, and I got a lot of attention and interest in this project. Yeah. So how large is the market for such a thing? I mean, so basically, a study concluded that between 2002 and 2014, an annual average of 0.1% of all ages identified as current psychedelic users, meaning they have used psychedelics in the last 30 days. And also we see, I mean, in the last 5 years, we have seen over 100% increase in the users of LSD, and we see this in the Global Drug Survey statistics. Okay, and we also see a lot of interest online in this subject. I mean, we see Google search trends for the word psychedelic increasing, and we see all the psychedelic subreddits also starkly increasing in size and subscribers. I know personally the guy who runs the Danish psychedelic page, and it increases double every year. It doubles every year. Yeah. So what's our stats? So basically, this is actually a map of our users, and each point on the map here actually shows multiple users because they overlay each other in the more concentrated areas and cities. So we see we operate mostly in Europe and North America. We also So I mean, we launched the production a better production site in February. And we got over 20,000 page views since then. We have 700 to 1,000 signups, and I'm not gonna lie, we don't have product market fit yet. But I mean, these numbers are from organic growth. We don't have any resources. We haven't advertised or anything like that. Okay, so what's our competitors? So yeah, I mean, after I launched the prototype in 2019, the first prototype. I saw a bunch of a couple of competitors pop up on the internet. So one of them is Tripping Love. They died out pretty quickly, and then we have 𝗏𝗏, which has over 10,000 downloads on Google Play. And but the problem with 𝗏𝗏 is that it's a pretty bad application, and people cannot sign up. And this was also my experience with the application. So at least people can sign up with our application, and we have far less resources than the people running 𝗏𝗏. Okay, so we basically have a arms race going on here. Somebody's going to do this first. The question is who? Yeah. So how are we going to monetize this? So we are building a community for a marketplace, so to sell merchandise, and also we're looking at a freemium model for psychedelic societies, group, and institutions to be able to advertise to the local area. So it's all based around localization. Okay, and of course the investors need their money back at some time. I mean, niche dating sites, they especially the serious ones, they seem to have not have a hard time getting fundraising, and also usually they are acquired by a conglomerate. But I think in our case it would be more interesting to look at the psychedelic companies that are more in the area of recreation, and especially something like Delek or Red Light Holland that actually are interested in having a digital presence. Yeah. So future goals. So basically, we're interested in making a seamless experience for our users. And we are in talks with some influencers and YouTubers that are focusing on psychedelics, and we are also interested in expanding our team and getting more hands on deck. So this is our context, and that was my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zuber. Thank you for delivering that pitch. Judges, I'll invite you back on the stage for your questions. Thank you.
Zuber, where's your hosting being done right now?
So basically, we're running on Google Cloud. We're running a microservice setup currently. Yeah.
How many matches? How do you quantify success or attraction?
I mean, how we quantify success for the users that are using the application, that will be in of course, in matches and amount of interactions and interest they have in the product.
So when you're with your freemium model right now, what does that look like from a revenue model? Is there actually revenue built into it, or is it really getting users on the platform?
Do you mean for the people signing up for the freemium model?
Yeah, the freemium version.
Yeah. So basically, what we're looking at is that we're looking at the psychedelic institutions and societies, all their psychedelic societies all around the world in every city, and they also have an interest in reaching their local constituents and potential constituents.
What type of privacy features are in place right now? I mean, is screenshotting allowed? What type of data is shared with users?
Yeah, so I mean, we have thought about this a lot because not everybody wants to actually sign up for the service simply because I mean, you're kind of putting yourself out there, right? Even on a niche site like that. I mean, we have thought about different solutions to this, but I mean, yeah, it's a little hard problem to solve here. But it seems like most people who are actually interested in meeting other people in the local area, yeah, find this interesting.
Quick question: what's your cost of client acquisition for the 1,000 users you have? How much have you spent to build that?
Nothing actually. We haven't actually spent anything on acquiring users. I mean, we do some posts once in a while on Instagram and so on. So I mean, this is organic growth.
Okay. What's the activity like amongst those 100,000 users? Do you have a way to quantify that?
Yeah, I mean, so we see kind of a drop off after a couple of weeks, a month. I mean, we see people reappearing on the site even like 4 or 5 weeks after the initial sign up. But it kind of drops off, and I think it's because I mean the UI is quite bad, and also the notification system has to be improved a lot.
Well, what are you providing them right now, other than matching with a very small group of people? Is there any community building being done? Is there any content generation being done?
No, currently we're not generating content. We're not writing articles or anything. And also, I mean, people are currently only able to find dates and friends in the local area. So we have kind of segmented into that. Yeah, into those two areas. But we entail to also provide group functionality and events.
Okay. When would you be seeing the marketplace come alive? And is there sort of a user count you're trying to get to before you initiate the marketplace, or are you going to initiate the marketplace in advance of the users going up?
Yeah, I mean, really what we have thought about doing is there's a lot of dropshipping services for clothing merchandise. So we can kind of set up a shop like that and advertise our own shop on our own website. So it wouldn't entail a lot of storage space and all that. So I mean, we can kind of do it anytime, but we haven't thought about when the best time would be. Currently, we're just focusing on creating the best thing we can.
Zuber, is there going to be any moderation on that? I know a lot of the cannabis dating apps. There were some issues with, selling federally regulated products on there.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, currently we're moderating it ourselves, right? So, but I mean, it's easy to imagine some kind of a text search or some kind of a neural network that sorts out or at least blocks unwanted unwanted activity, or at least a blocking feature.
Yeah, because again, yeah, I think what Cody was getting at is there was some dating apps that showed up in the cannabis space that very much weren't around dating, but was around delivery of product.
No, I mean, we are the cultural side of psychedelics, and I think people actually want to meet other people with the same interests, especially when they initially learn about psychedelics. And yeah.
Can I ask one question that I think from a non-technical basis? Why wouldn't someone set up a Facebook group and do it that way rather than invest in your business and look at your network separate?
Yeah, I mean, Facebook is not really made for. I mean, you could make a Facebook group for all the cities of the world, but I mean, it's not really meant to meeting. It's more meant to connecting online and sharing content.
Okay.
So I mean, I think you can go in any city, most of the large cities in the West currently, and find a couple of users on PsychLove.
What's your use of funds for this money that you're going to raise, and how much are you actually raising?
Yeah, I mean, our usage will probably be for marketing purposes and for for improving the UI and UX of the website, and also yeah, so that'll mainly be it. For raising, I mean, we haven't really looked at percentages currently, or I mean, we think that a how do you say, a normal in seed funding would be more that we go after.
Okay, thank you very much, Zuber. We really appreciate you spending the time. Thank you. Okay, the next part of the pitch event is to let the judges have a few minutes to deliberate and make this, I'm sure it will be a very difficult decision. I'd like to thank all of you that pitched today, Pamela and Jeremy from 𝗙liche Health, Benjamin Mudge from CIC, Bipolar Disorder CIC, Dr. Michael Kagan, Reagenics, and 𝗙cie𝗶𝗶𝗄𝗏 from PsychLove. You know, it takes a lot of work to get these things off the ground. The theme of the whole event is where research meets industry, and I think these pitches have certainly displayed what is happening in this space at the moment. So thank you all for that and for all the effort. We're gonna spend a few minutes listening to somebody. It's not anything to do with business, but PsyTech prides itself on giving back, and I think it's the perfect time while we're talking about raising money and investing and companies. It's the time to think about how we can give to people that need it the most at the moment. So I'm going to introduce you to 𝗙𝗚𝗍𝗍. She's going to be telling you about a battle that's going on in federal law at the moment for a change in the right to try laws. This is being led by a couple of people, Catherine Tucker from Emerge Law Groups, and it's the right of patients who are at the end of life and are fighting for the right to have access to these medicines. So I'll hand it over to you, 𝗙𝗚𝗍𝗍, and thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is 𝗙𝗚𝗍𝗍, and I am a native Chamorro from the island of Guam. In 2010, I moved out to Seattle, where I attended Seattle University and received a bachelor's degree in general science and a master's in business administration. In Guam, plant medicine is a part of our traditional healing practices, and so I'm a big community advocate for plant medicine and natural healing. In 2017, I lost a good friend of mine to leukemia. And before his passing, he mentioned that he would try anything and everything, including psilocybin mushrooms, to help with the fear and anxiety he was experiencing. At the time, there was no avenue to get him the treatment that he sought. And I often think back and wonder if his experience would have been different and if it would have been easier if he had access to this sacred plant medicine. In 2020, I heard about the amazing case that Dr. Agarwal and Catherine Tucker were working on for their patient rights to access psilocybin under right to try laws, and it immediately resonated with me. So I'm here today as a volunteer to tell you more about the case and to help garner support for their initiative. Dr. Agarwal is a founder and palliative care physician of AIMS Institute, and a couple of his advanced stage cancer patients reached out to him for psilocybin therapy to help alleviate the severe depression and anxiety that they are experiencing. And there has been much research coming out from renowned medical institutions such as Johns Hopkins University that demonstrate psilocybin's remarkable ability to treat depression, PTSD, addiction, and provide effective end-of-life treatment. And because of this, Dr. Agarwal partnered with Catherine Tucker, a well-known patient rights lawyer with Emerge Law Group, and together they approached the DEA for approval to provide psilocybin therapy to their patients under federal and Washington state right to try laws. And unfortunately, their request was denied, leading them to file the nation's first ever lawsuit against the DEA under the premise that their terminally ill patients' rights to try are being denied. And so the case has received much support from a robust group of attorney generals of 8 states, filing amicus briefs urging the court to rule in the patient's favor. And at this time, we're seeking the community support as the legal team continues to take on upcoming case milestones. So if you are able to support, feel free to check out the link that we provided to the donation site. If the case is won, it has the potential to establish legal precedent that could open access to psilocybin therapy for patients nationwide. Thank you so much, and we're really looking forward to the possibilities.
Oops, I'm on mute. Hi, everyone. Okay, we have an answer. I'm going to invite the CEO of PsyTech, Hayim Raclaw, to the stage, and he's going to announce the winner. Thanks, Hayim.
And I'm going to come off mute to do it. Thank you, Deb, for giving me and my co-judges a little bit of extra time to deliberate, because it wasn't easy. All the companies were compelling, and I appreciated the sheer breadth of companies and what their activities were. We wish we could award to all of them. However, the winner for this year's pitch competition, I'm pleased to say, is 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. So Michael Kagan, thank you for presenting with us. And I'm very pleased to award this year's pitch competition to you.
Well, thank you very much. I've been thinking about this, and what I'd like to do is to donate whatever it is, the prizes you're giving, to 𝗍𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏. I think they're doing a great job and an important job. So I would like to ask you if you would pass on any of the prizes, gifts, help, financials, whatever it is. If that's acceptable, I would like to pass it on to them.
Michael, that is it's not only acceptable, I think it's a fantastic way for us to wrap up this year's event. So
I would also like to give them to the others, you know.
Of course. Much appreciated. And then by Michael's generosity and deferral on behalf of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, the recipient of the awards for this year's pitch competition will be 𝗍𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏.
I still want to have my certificate that I won, but you can, right?
I'll be writing that up shortly.
Very good. And if anyone wants to invest 12 million, if any of the investors want to invest 12 million, then they know how to contact me.
We will make sure that your contact information, that of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, that of all the companies, will be made readily available to all the attendees of the event. In fact, the entire PsyTech community will will be afforded that opportunity.
Thank you. Hayim,
Thank you, Michael. Back to you, Deb.
Okay, congratulations, Michael, and congratulations, 𝗍𝗏𝗏 Health. And thank you, everybody. As I said before, I encourage you all to head back to the medical track and enjoy the rest of the day. Until the next PsyTech Summit. Bye.